when I was learning how to make pita, there's this person who was telling me, like, well, we dip our hands on ice, then we get them out, and then we dip them again on ice, and then we do... And I was just in there thinking, like, I know the grandmas were not doing this shit. They didn't even have ice.
Right.
This is, I always go back to that. Like, what would my grandmother do? What would my grandma's grandmother do? Like, all of that, you know, to, like, find a middle ground between with what we're doing now and what they were doing then.
Welcome to the next episode of Pancon Podcast. This is years and years in the making. Am I wrong? How many times have we tried this?
No, this is, there have been a lot of attempts.
A lot of attempts. The very elusive, the wonderful, incredibly talented, and like a little sister to me, Val Chang, everyone.
I just want to tell you, one of my friends who finds you very cute said to me today,
okay.
Oh, what are you doing, that pan con lechon thing? And I'm
yes,
like, oh,
that's good.
Oh, I'm like, you might think he's a lechon, but I'm going to pan con podcast.
We will sidebar who this nice friend is for after the podcast. Val Chang, finally you have arrived on the podcast. I don't know if you've ever listened to this thing. I'm just going to give you have?
Yes.
So you know the thing. We're going to go through your whole life, and then we're going to get into topics.
Okay.
So tell us, I mean, obviously, I think we have talked about Itamae on this podcast as much, I think, as we've talked about Ariete. I believe it. Like, it's obviously one of my favorite places to eat, and it's also a lot of other people's favorite places to eat that have been on this show. So that's great. So it's always part of partying recommendations several times. So everyone knows you from that. But let's start at like the very beginning. When did little Val decide that she wanted to be a chef?
Little Val. I think, honestly, I was always very curious in the kitchen. My grandmother's in Peru, my grandmother actually really didn't let us do a lot in the kitchen out of fear that we would, like, cut ourselves. And I always wanted to wash or to observe what they were doing. And then when we moved here, I think at maybe, 13, Nando wasn't living with us anymore. So on the weekends, my dad had to take me with him to the restaurants because obviously we lived in, a one-bedroom apartment. There was no money. Really, really tough. We shopped at the dollar store only for everything. And he would take me to the restaurant and I would just go in the kitchen and drop mozzarella sticks. Or I always wanted to garnish something. And maybe then I started exploring. And then I did, I started front of the house.
So when Nando was 13, how old were you?
No, I was 13 and I was 16.
Oh, right. Okay. And then your dad, also a chef, Papa Chang, the legend himself. Nando wasn't cooking then, was he?
Nando's been peeling potatoes at a restaurant since he was 10.
Oh, yeah.
When we lived in Peru and we were also going through really hard financial times, he just picked up a job at at Pollos a la Brasa.
Yeah.
And he was peeling sacks of potatoes. And he would get paid, and he would also bring a chicken home.
I love that.
So he's been at it forever, too.
I mean, I think the thing with both of you guys growing up around food, as much as you did, your dad and your grandmother's just an amazing cook.
Yes.
She's not it wasn't like her profession.
No.
Right.
Both of my grandmothers.
Just amazing cooks.
Amazing cooks.
Yeah. My grandmother and grandfather are amazing cooks. The one thing that fascinates me about the old generation is that they can systematically be doing it wrong, or what I was trained to be that's wrong, but it still comes out perfect and it tastes delicious, and it's wild to me. And they also didn't really let me cook when I was a kid. I was more just enamored by the whole situation, right? Feeding your family and how wholesome that moment felt special. And I think as a kid, I don't remember a lot of things, but I remember more dinners than I do anything else from childhood.
Yeah, it's funny because the grandmother I grew up in mainly cooked chifa and
For the people who don't know what that is.
Chinese Peruvian food.
Okay.
She has Alzheimer's. She's still alive, She's in a home. But I was working crazy hours when she finally moved to the States. And, I didn't sit with her and ask her a lot of the recipes. And now I regret. I truly, I've gone back to Peru in my hometown to meet with, the housekeeper that lived with her for so many years. And she sat with me and taught me a whole bunch of recipes that I wish I would have gotten from her.
Right.
I have my aunt, my tia Tita, who has a lot of these recipes, who she's passing them down to me.
Oh, wow.
And then...
Looks like they really did a number here, huh?
Thank you so much.
Of course.
But, so my other grandmother, who's very well, and she's an amazing Peruvian cook, amazing. I will call her and be like, Abuelita, yeah, tell me. Remind me again, walk me step by step. And she's like, oh no, a little bit of, and when the color turns this, and then, and I'm like, no, grandma, you need to slow, I need you to, and we'll do this on FaceTime, because the one thing I love about my maternal grandmother is that she does answer me on FaceTime.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
So, if I'm making something, she's like, you just have to wait for the caramel color. And then I just throw 2 pinches of this. Oh, and then everything's out of whack. And I'm like, Grandma, I'm trying to do this for a recipe. But it's really, truly amazing to try to capture those moments now. Regretting not having captured that with my grandmother, who I was closest to. But also, trying to capture everything of my other grandmother, who's still very much here with me, who's truly, inspired me in so many ways about, criollo food. She's amazing, at it. But it is funny, how they're always just oh no, just
just a little bit of that.
Un poquito de esto, and you throw a little bit here, and then now you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, that made no sense, and it will never come out like that for me, but
One of my favorite Instagram accounts is Pasta Grannies. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that, because it's just they don't measure anything. They just do it, and they just know it so well that it's it's different. They can tell when things need to happen, as opposed to us that, we're used to more structure, but they've been doing it for 40 or 50 years, and it's just second nature to them.
I think they feel it sometimes more than we do,
Sure.
I appreciate fine dining so much, but it's definitely not the style of food that I want to cook, and I've always been very clear with that. Even after I went to do my stage, I was like, okay, this isn't what I want. But they feel it differently than we do.
Yeah. Well,
they know, I always wonder when I cook something and something's not working out. When I was learning how to make pita, there's this person who was telling me well, we dip our hands on ice, then we get them out, and then we dip them again on ice, and then we do. And I was just in there thinking, I know the grandmas were not doing this shit. They didn't even have ice.
Right.
This is I always go back to that. What would my grandmother do? What would my grandma's grandmother do? All of that, to find a middle ground between what we're doing now and what they were doing then.
Thanks to our sponsor, Aganorsa Leaf Cigars.
Aganorsa leaf is renowned throughout the world for its signature flavor that possesses all the great attributes of Nicaraguan terroir, along with classic Cuban aroma and flavor.
Aganorsa Leaf is pleased to announce a brand new edition of Guardian of the Farm, Cerberus, named after the mythical three-headed hound that stood watch at the gates of Hades. This exciting new Nicaraguan puro uses 100% Aganorsa leaf tobacco and is wrapped in Aganorsa's new Corojo 2012 cover leaf, which adds a level of complexity to the blend, adding light spice and a rich, smooth body to the blend.
When you smoke one of our world-class blends, you will experience the difference between ordinary tobacco and Aganorsa leaf. That's why we say our leaf is our strength. Learn more about Aganorsa Leaf and use their store locator and find a cigar shop near you that carries their products at www.aganorsaleaf.com.
The two of us smoke Aganorsa Leaf cigars often. We also offer them to a lot of our guests, like, for example, Dave Arvello, who every time I post a picture of a Cerberus mentions to me in my DMs or in a text how cool the band is, which it actually is a pretty slick-looking band. But also, I just want to note, little personal anecdote here, so it's not all totally straight-up red. I can say that Michael Beltrán will absolutely not only vouch for the quality of Aganorsa cigars, but you met a Miami legend and handed him an Aganorsa cigar.
I did meet a Miami legend. I was smoking nearby Alonzo Morning, and we had a conversation about cigars, and he handed me one of his, and I went inside. I bought this exact same cigar, and I handed Alonzo Morning this Aganorsa cigar, and I said, try this. Thank me later.
I mean, if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is. AganorsaLeaf.com. Thanks to our sponsor, The Barrel. This is a barrel-style cooker you've heard a good amount about on the podcast. I was able to use it a ton in my yard and loved it. It is a unique design, a conversation piece, and most importantly, at least to me, an easy-to-use cooker with loads of capacity for ribs, chicharrón, chicken, cheese, fish, burgers, and that is just a list of the stuff that I was cooking all at once in a cooker not much wider than I am, although I'm pretty wide these days. Mike, not long ago, we took some time during a podcast to cook with The Barrel in the garden behind Ariette, so tell listeners about all of that while I roll some footage of the cook for the video people.
Very intrigued by the design and how the actual chicken was going to come out. I would have loved to actually cook more than one thing in there, but the chicken came out delicious. It was very quick too.
And we only didn't cook more because it was just the two of us at that point.
Right.
So
anyways, I think about it too, like the home cook that's going to cook this, and maybe they have 4 people at a table, maybe they have 6. Like, you could cook a good amount of things, because we also cooked some veg on there on the top grill, and then we cooked the chicken underneath it. You know, the vegetables were delicious, and they cooked incredibly fast, and the chicken itself was delicious. We used a whole green circle bird, truss tied, and just hung that thing, and it was really, really good times.
Get all of the information that you need, and of course, buy your own barrel at barrelthebbq.com, barrelthebbq.com, and use promo code PANCON10, that's PANCON10, for $100 off.
$100
of your order when you buy the barrel.
$100.
$100.
You know, I saw a barrel.
The kids call it a C-note.
I saw the barrel at a place the other day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You sent me a picture.
Yeah, and I was telling everyone around it that was looking at it, I said, don't buy it here. Buy it online.
Don't be a dummy.
And hit PANCON10, and you're going to save yourself $100. They said, what? I said, yeah, do it. And they were like,
be a sucker.
And then the kid just ran out.
Oh, man.
He just ran straight out of the store.
Peeled out in his car.
Yeah, straight to, yeah. He was on it.
BarrelTheBBQ.com, promo code PANCON10 for $100 off.
C-note. Introducing the newest line from Drew Estate Cigars. 20 Acre Farm is a complex, refined, and medium body cigar with a super oaky and cedary notes accompanied by a whisper of white pepper and a bright hint of citrus. Built at La Gran Fabrica, Drew Estate in Nicaragua, using a velvety, and I mean velvety, Ecuadorian Connecticut shade grown wrapper.
Under that wrapper is a sun-grown Habano binder and a filler blend of Nicaraguan tobaccos from Esteli and Jalapa in perfect balance with the opulent and majestic Florida sun-grown leaf. Florida sun-grown is also the name of the farm where that tobacco is lovingly grown and harvested by Jeff Borshowitz, who's the guy you see in this video playing behind us, on his pristine 20-acre plot of land near the central Florida town of Claremont. I have actually been to that farm, along with plenty of other cigar tobacco farms in Mexico, Central America, and the Dominican Republic. And what Jeff, who by the way is a very nice guy, there's actually a cigar box signed by Jeff hanging on my wall. What Jeff is doing there is super legit. So it's always cool to see products like his, which is the only premium cigar tobacco grown in Florida, in products from a company like Drew Estate.
Plus, 20 Acre Farm being a Drew Estate product means it's the creation of master blender and PANCON podcast guest Willie Herrera. Support our guests and sponsors. Get it online. Ask your local cigar shop about 20 Acre Farm by Drew Estate. Learn more about Drew Estate and use their store locator to find a cigar shop near you that carries their products at drewestate.com.
That's right. I'm probably going to smoke one of those right now.
What are we waiting for? I think like do we want to take like a small break so you can eat some of this food?
No, it's fine.
Okay. I think part of the thing I struggle with the most is I obviously love like fine dining food very much, but there's kind of like a level of fine dining I never want to reach, and I think that the perfectly imperfect, there's a lot to be said about that, and there's a realness to the food that doesn't necessarily exist in all fine dining food, right? Because their goal, and listen, we go through this all the time too, is like their goal is to execute efficiently and to nail it every single time, right? But that the element of imperfection is, I think, so important because it gives something life. Because there's no perfect human on the planet, right? There's nothing that's like perfect.
You're not perfect?
No, I'm not.
I'm out of here.
No, I mean,
I don't believe in this anymore.
Nobody. I think like the pursuit of perfection is kind of like flawed because it loses its soul, and I think real food is delicious because it has a soul and it has a story and it has like a connection to something, and I think that's like, you know, I understand what you mean by like fine dining isn't quite like the whole thing, but I think there can be elements of that are taken with you on the journey. Feel me?
Oh yeah, I think it's also, you know, it's just so personal because like I'm a nostalgic chef. Like I love when food makes me feel
100%
something. Like it needs to taste, but I need to feel emotions. Like same when I eat a dessert, right? Like I always compare it to the first time I had a Snickers, and I still remember. Probably because I was addicted to sugar. I was addicted to sugar when I was little. I'm addicted to sugar, probably.
I love sugar.
But I just until this day, like I remember like what it's like to eat. Like Snickers and Take Fives are my favorite ones.
Right.
But I remember, like every time I eat a Snicker, I'm just like so everything, my childhood, my teenage, everything. I'm like, oh my god, this reminds me of so many memories, you know. And I always look at that like. When I cook or I make a ceviche or I make anything, I want to be brought back sentimentally into a place where this reminds me of something. This made me feel something. Like that's very important to me.
You know, like the feeling. I also love sugar, so like salted caramel is like my move. Like I love anything salty, caramelly, like whatever. But like I always, and I've talked about this before, like the moment. I love Noche Buenas. It's my favorite holiday, right? And I think it's not like this anymore in my family, but when I was younger growing up, it was that moment. My grandfather had worked for like 3 days and my grandmother, and they were cooking for 30 people that they love. And it's like that moment of just like watching it all happen and then seeing all these people eating food. And my grandparents, like literally, they had been working for days and they had seen this whole thing like develop from like the pork sitting in the fridge, all like whatever, then to ending up in the cajachina, and then like it's just like a process. But they still made it a point to sit down last and feed themselves last, because the love and the care that they put into the food was for their family. And like that thing, that nostalgic connection is how I feel about food in general. You know, like it doesn't matter whether it's at Ariette or if it's at Chugs or whatever it may be. It's like, for me, I want to. Like I guess this is like a thing in today's world. Like, what is your love language? For me, like, I'm not a great talker. I'm not a great expresser of emotion, but like, this is how I express it for people.
So what is your love language?
I just said it. It's cooking food.
So are you a gifter?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
Well, there's people who love to give. Like they love buying. Their love language is buying people get a gift.
Sure.
There's people's love language who like to touch. There's like 5 love languages, you know? Like I'm like, my love language is taking care. Like, I always like to nurture. But the love language that I love to receive is gifts.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And not to be like, I love gifts. I truly, like, I'm always happy when somebody, like, went somewhere and thought of me and said, I got you this shirt. Or, like, I got you this. Like, that. That's the way I love to, like. So there's two ways of love language. The one you like to give and the one you like to receive. It's a very real thing.
Yeah, receiving is a little different. I feel like not everyone is structured to receive love the same way. And it's like very interesting because some people don't know how to accept it completely.
You know, in this, I think...
Same with compliments. I feel like compliments are, like, not everyone... I don't know how to take a compliment at all.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's... I think I've taken, and we've gone through these conversations, you know, like, the past year and a half to really search for myself. Who am I without food? Who am I with food? Who am I with a boyfriend? Who am I without a boyfriend? Who am I without my brother? Who am I with my brother? Who am I with my dad? Who am I without my dad, you know? And with a lot of therapy and a lot of meditation and a lot of, like, looking for healing, I've learned, like, we're all very traumatized. Our parents, you know, and it's just, like, it's a lot of the times when, like, and we have these talks about, like, the expectations of, like, the awards and this and that. It's all, like, for me, I've learned to just live with it without holding on to it too much. Maybe there's a part of me that's avoiding it, or, you know, because it's, like, I've realized that truly, like, there's a point where your happiness sounds so cliche, but has to come from you.
Sure, yeah,
and the
absolutely.
healing comes from the work you put in, and otherwise, you know, it's, you know, like you said, like, it's hard to take a compliment because it's also, that ties in with, it's hard for us to feel like we deserve the space that we take in this earth. Like, and I've learned that, like, the hard way, you know. I've just been very avoiding of compliments and, like, yeah, I don't really care, I don't, you know, and that is a mirror of, like, sometimes my struggle to, like, truly understand, like, I also deserve those things just like you do, just like Nick, like, you know, in the search of, like, in the search of happiness.
I mean, that search is never ending, I believe. But it always starts with, like, I believe that search always starts, like, with, are you content with where you're at and who you are, right? I mean, you cannot really extend love without giving love to yourself first and, like, actually, like, expressing it to yourself. A lot of people that beat themselves down, you know, and I think it's, like, the world today is structured in a way that it's, like, so look at me, right? And I feel like I worry about other, like, younger generations, right? Because I think that our age, we've lived both sides of, like, technology and, like, lack thereof, or just lesser. So I think we have a good base, like, we still played outside and things like that, to bring it, like, to a very, like, simple level. But the whole, like, look at me thing is looking for validation from others and not really validating yourself, you know? And it's tough. I mean, I struggle with it too, right? Like, are you doing enough? Have you done enough? I mean, it's like it's an everyday thing for, I think, people that are goal oriented and have certain, like, they just want to go to a certain place. What is that certain place? And finding that certain place is very important.
Yeah, it's like we're always chased with, like, the imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
And it just, like, chases us and breathes behind our neck all the time. And that's why I always tell you, like, these awards are so rewarding, but they also take away as much as they give you, you know, because they make you feel vulnerable, because they make you question yourself. They make you, like, and if for some odd reason you don't get it or you don't go to the next round, then it's a whole, like, it's traumatizing, honestly. Like, I see it, you know, I see it and I'm like, this is, like, I'm already traumatized with the own shit that I do with day to day with my staff. And sometimes my staff, like, you know, you see so many changes and they're going through their own stuff, and sometimes you take it so personal. You know, so like that's why all these things for me, like I've learned to just be like a little bit more relaxed about it. Just whatever happens, like what I'm always truly happy is like it's 9:30 and I walk into your dining room and it's full. Your patio is full.
Yeah.
Of the 3 restaurants you have in this corner, they're full, and that to me is like, this is like, I don't care what award, what any, like that to me is so special, because that is truly the now, and like the present, and like this is how good you really are doing, you and your whole team, you know, because you have a dining room where people are truly enjoying, where you don't see people are mad, you don't see people are having a great time in a beautiful setting, your staff feels light, they're always, you know, and at the end, to me, that I've learned that matters more.
Yeah. I
than
mean,
anything, because otherwise we're just in this constant pressure of like, are you good enough? Are you good enough? Are you good enough? Like, and it gets tiring to wonder, like, am I good enough? Am I as good as Michael? Am I as good as my brother? Do I work as hard as my dad? Am I good as like the new staff that are coming into Itamae, you know, like, and I've gone through all that in a year. Like, am I good enough to be next to Tere? Am I good enough to be next to Nico? Am I good enough for my brother? Am I good enough and I'm like, well, this is like I'm living in a war myself to just like truly live.
Right.
You know, it's taking a lot of therapy and a lot of investment too to like get to a point where I'm like, yo, I just exist.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. I get to do what I'm blessed that I don't really work for anybody else. I'm blessed that I can choose that, like right now I'm like, all right, the light bulb turned on again and I'm gonna change everything at B-side. And I've ordered my new equipment and I changed this. Like, I've learned to just look for like, I mean, there's really no point to this exact comment, but like, just to try to be a little happier.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, obviously we will talk about awards more, but, you know, like this is just so people get context, right? Like this is the first year that the guide will rate Miami, right? So this week, invitations went out to the award ceremony that no one knows what they're getting and no one knows what's happening. And I had this conversation with a very dear friend. And, you know, like, the conversation pretty much went like this, is no matter what happens, I think that there's a solid amount of people and restaurants in this city that are incredibly blessed because people love them. They go there all the time, they enjoy themselves, and they really have become, I guess, part of that restaurant's family, you know. And like Ariette, we feel it a lot. I mean, we have a lot of people that come here all the time and they enjoy themselves profusely, and they come several times throughout the month or even within a week. And like, it's hard for me. I'm a competitor, right? Like that. This is my biggest thing. I like to compete, no matter what happens in the world. Like I'm blessed. We're all pretty blessed. People love your restaurants. People love my restaurants. People love that person's restaurant. And like, it's almost, when you're younger and you work for other people, you're always saying like, I just want to reach this level. And then when you get to this level, you the noise, there's so much noise, right? Like there's so much shit that needs to happen, so much shit that goes wrong, that you like in the day-to-day, you just like, it could really fucking crush you, right? But if you were to step back and look at it through 2020, right? 2020 vision, not the year. Like, it's incredible. Like you essentially are living what you once upon a time dreamed of. And I have to remind myself of that shit all the time. Because again, I'm a competitor. So like, I want us to be great. I want us to be the best. I want us to strive for more. I want us to do as much as we can. But I also want kind of some of the things that I wasn't given as a young cook, which is like to see some of these younger kids underneath me really grow and help them grow and teach them the things that I was never taught. Give them that opportunity. Like really, like, it's okay to fail. Let me coach you through the failure. Let me help you through it. And let's get there together. And at the end of the day, you have someone that appreciates you more and that also appreciates their job more and appreciates the food that they cook more. You know, and I think like all of that is very cyclical. You know, like it all works together. It's all like very interesting, but you need to take a step back. You need to take a deep breath and look at it. It's hard to do when you're in the day-to-day. You're very aware. I know, as am I. And I think everyone who lives within a position like ours, it's tough. It's not easy.
It's really... You know, I already think you're doing... Like, I already think you're the best.
Oh, you're sweet. I think you're the best,
I
too.
already think that what you're doing is incredible. I already think that you're coaching. I already think all those things you mentioned, I already think of you. And I admire those things from you.
You know what's the hardest part? I think we grow up in an environment that's incredibly tough, right? And I think that you fight and you claw every day, you know, as a line cook, as a sous chef, a junior sous chef, executive chef, whatever fucking position you have. It's like, it's a fight, you know, like you go through it. And then I think when you turn from player to coach more, it's a hard shift. You know, you really have to retrain your mind. And I think at that point, it's like very hard to assess a lot of things. Because before, it's like, what is your gig? You work a station. You need to own that station. You need to boss that station. You need to crush all the food that you cook. You need to run the cleanest, tightest ship that you have. And now it's different. Now you have to run several tight ships and clean houses and also nurture the people and teach them underneath you how to do that. It's a very weird world to move to, you know, but I also feel like I was fortunate enough to work for some really great chefs and people that I love and respect very much. I learned what I learned from them, and I took what I took from them, and I also want to apply things differently my way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easier to be a chef in one restaurant in one place where you're out of control than to become like a businesswoman or a businessman, right? Because that's essentially what we're both in our own way turning into, right?
Amen.
I think I have to tell myself all the time this, because I go through those like, what is happening to my life? And then, you know, I'll go and work. I surprise them, you know, as the season's coming to an end of the arena. I've been slowly dipping my feet back at B-side. My staff is definitely feeling it.
For sure.
I surprised them all last weekend on a Friday. I worked service with them. They were like, I just can't go faster.
Yeah.
Like, faster. Like, keep rolling. And 3 of them were very late. And they got there and I said, go home. I don't give a fuck. I'll work this whole line by myself, you know? I knew they were going to ask me to stay. But, you know, it's a principle.
Did you send them home?
No, because then I'm also like, you know, I did say to them, go home. And they just stood there like puppies. Didn't know what to do. And I truly meant it. I'm like, all right, go home. And what? That's the beauty of being... And I've always remind myself of this. The beauty about being the creator and like the founder is that you could start it all over again every single time. Over and over again, right? So, no, and that's a businesswoman out of me. Like, I knew that. And that's also we're like so, like, I think there's such a part where we're like so noble, but also we're such egomaniacs, right?
Yeah.
We're like, when I'm like, go home, that's just like me putting my foot down and just showing you that I'm the boss, you know? Where then there's the part of like, I know they're not gonna go home. I know they're gonna stand there like puppies, and you know, in order for them to go home, it would require a big altercation that I just simply don't really want to go through. And I've learned now to just, you know, the next day I send a very long message about schedules, tardiness, and what I'm expecting of them. And just, you know, with the final message of don't get surprised.
Right.
When the schedule changes and you may not see so many hours. Like, this is the expectation, and you either, you know, like, being a chef is, I think, a little not easier, but a little more controllable than being a businesswoman for me, you know? Like, I have to remind myself of those things, because on Friday night, we did amazing. You know, I was there. We did amazing. The sales were up, and just like, I mean, I don't think any roll took more than like 7 minutes. But you know, and then I go back Saturday night, look at the numbers, look at the peaks. It's not the same. It's, I don't like, why?
Right.
And then I have to tell myself it's because I'm not there, and because I was at the arena handling another business that I decided to do.
Yeah.
You know, and just give myself the room to like have a little wiggle.
When I my saying always when I feel like, because they're obviously always going to be better when you're there, right? What I tell them all the time is like, the truest form and like the true fiber of what makes a human is what you do when other people aren't watching.
Yeah.
And I remind them of that all the time. Like, you're all grown-ups, and you know you can fail, and it's okay, but don't fail because you were being lazy. Don't fail because you wanted to take the easy way out. Don't fail because you didn't want to put in the work. Fail because you were going 100 miles an hour and you just fucked something up, and that's okay. That's all right. That's how I learned, you know? But like that thing of just like, you are who you are when other people aren't watching you. That's the true fiber of who you are, and that's going to dictate the rest of your career.
Yeah.
It's not going to be me. It's going to be you. Like, you will go as far as you want to go. And I think telling people that has really, it's stuck with a lot of people, you know, and some people haven't made it because of that, you know, and they weed themselves out because of that, you know, and it's like, I think just because we are where we are and the amount of things and different outlets that we have, it's the only way I can survive, you know. It's by reminding them that, like, yeah, I mean, I think you will be at your best when I'm over your shoulder, but you should be at your best because you want to be at your best.
It's so frustrating, right? To be like, you're your best because I'm here. This is yeah, and we're also so emotional, like, you know, you have people's livelihood in your hands.
Yeah.
And it's very scary to make those wrong decisions and to fuck someone's life up. Like, this person was counting with money. I don't know everything that goes deep inside into every single one of my employees' lives.
Yeah.
You know, but today I had a moment where I was driving, I talked myself through it, and I said, listen, when you sit with this person, don't get caught in the moment. Like, just truly tell them that you really need to make decisions that benefit the business.
Right.
And it was very difficult. And I could be very cold sometimes too, you know, and it was very difficult because this is somebody that I've been working with, and I'm, you know, I really do enjoy working with them. We just have to restructure, you know, like, I've realized, you know, some of my prep cooks, this is what happens when you also take 8 months off of business, right? Like, we've been focused in the arena, and one of my, you know, prep cooks aren't there on the weekends. And I'm, you know, as time, the changes are coming, and they're coming in hot. And I'm like, no, I'm very sorry. I understand you might have been working here for a year, but for what I need for this business to thrive again, the way
Right.
I want it to thrive, I need prep cooks here on the weekends.
Of course.
You can come in at 6 a.m. if you want and leave at 1. I will work with you on that, but this is like, and it's always been very difficult for me because I start thinking like about all the other stuff, the emotional attachment stuff, and that's like the chef part of me that, like, when you're there in one restaurant, you can hold it down, and whether that person doesn't come or not, as long as you've managed them so well on Thursday, on the whole week, you're gonna survive, you know. Whether the businesswoman out of me comes out and just tells me, I'm like, no, Val, you're gonna go in there and you're gonna tell them this is exactly what you need, and if you like to stay, you can stay, and if you don't want to stay, I understand. But this is what this business needs moving forward, you know, and that's very difficult too.
I've
difficult to me.
I've gotten away from like that feeling super difficult for me, because without the business, no one gets paid, right?
Yeah.
There is no job, you know, and I understand that other people need certain things, but the business needs X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
That's why I tell people all the time, like, you know, our job as like the boss is, it sounds cool. It's also a very lonely job because you have to make a lot of decisions that a lot of people don't agree with. and you have to make them. You have to make them. No one else is going to make it for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's not a chef over your shoulder saying, no, we'll add this or we'll do that. You have to do it. And a lot of people aren't going to agree, and that's okay, because you are making the best decision for the business, for the restaurant to succeed, because that's what matters. So everyone gets fed. Period.
Yeah, that was a conversation I had today. I'm like, this is what it's going to take. Because, so on a fun subject, right? A lot of this, Itamae has progressed so much from where we were. And I think it's very clear the direction of what Itamae is now, right? It's very clear where it's heading and where it's going and what it is now. And in that change, there's being a little bit sometimes of shock to people that, you know, for instance, would come for the roles, you know, and then they go and, you know, will be like, where are the roles? What do you mean you don't sell? And it's allow us to finally give the opportunity to do what I think was meant to be from the beginning, which is move all those things to B-side, make it a lot more Nikkei, bring in a lot of the other stuff. Obviously, not the same. Time has passed. You're inspired by different things. So very excited for that. Gonna bring basically little Itamae from upstairs in a different version to B-side.
I loved Little Itamae.
So, and it's also allowed me to truly feel inspired again. You know, I'm like, oh, I know this ceviche, and I know this thing that's coming on, I know this and this and this and this. Like, I know exactly where I'm heading with this menu, you know, and the direction I'm going with it. And I think it'll be a good place for the business and for myself.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I mean, you guys are the business, right? So, like, if you guys feel inspired and you guys feel good, that's like the most important thing. I mean, inspiration is tough when you're a business person. You know, like, you get lost in the sauce a lot because you're running a business. So finding that moment of creativity and inspiration is huge, and you have to reignite that stuff all the time.
It's hard to I mean, I think we're always so creative and thinking about all these things, but then you're like, so how do I do this?
Right.
When I'm like at the arena, I'm like very confused.
Or how do you do this? Can the kitchen do this?
Yeah.
Can the cooks pull it off? Can they? I think that's like a lot of things, because the other thing too is to remember, like, not everyone is you, and not everyone is your brother.
Yeah.
Not everyone is Papa Chang. So it's like there's levels of, like, okay, so I have this person that works this position. What are they capable of pushing themselves to? Can I push them to another dish, or changing that dish to a more complex dish? And can they handle the workload of adding X, Y, and Z? Like the salad that's sitting in front of you. Stuff like that was like a 3-week, 4-week conversation. You know, can we push them to do? We already have something like it, but this is going to be a little more. This is a step further than where we were previously. So, are they ready for it? And those conversations too are not something that I mean, now I'm used to them, but when we first started to grow and things started to change, and I wasn't the one that was simply back there every day doing it, I couldn't change the menu every 4 days because it wasn't just me.
Right.
I had to train them to think like me, to act like me, to cook like me, and that took a lot of time. Time out. I'm going to get a drink.
Pew, pew, pew.
And we're back. I think we've kind of lost track here, so let's go back. Okay. So, you were a kid, obviously seeing things from your grandparents, kind of enamored by food. They didn't let you do anything. When did this, like, all kind of snowball into, like, you doing what you do now?
I don't, you know, just started working. Like, it just happened because I'm one of those people who, like, I'm clear that I was born for this. I don't know if I'm clear. I don't know if my story will be that it's so clear that I'm just always going to be a chef, you know? I think it's clear for me that this is the work I want it to be in. This is the business I want to grow in. So for me, like, my dad would always tell me when I also very much love clothes and I love shopping.
Okay.
Because if I wasn't a chef, I would have, and I did go to retail. for a little bit. And my dad would tell me, like, why are you buying those shoes? Like, can't you tell that, like, that was your week's worth of work? You're not tired? Like, no te pesa? And I used to always answer him, like, no, because I really don't work. Like, I work, but it's not a job to me. It's, like, what I love to do.
Right.
You know? So I struggle with my shopping habits and, like, feeling like that was a week's worth. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. It's worth it.
That's fine. I mean, I'm gonna do it anyway, whether I really love wearing those shoes or I don't ever wear them or I don't own them. I still have to go to work. So,
how old were you when you first got a job in a kitchen?
So I would go to caterings with my dad as well, and when maybe I was like 14 or something, and it was a summer or right before summer or after, and I would always go to my dad's, the place where I would go, where I would drop like mozzarella sticks or garnish the rolls for him. And one time a server called out, and we were so weeded because it was a kosher place. And it was like Saturday night, and they were slammed. And I don't know if you know this, but kosher restaurants, when they open on Saturday, it is fucking like the Olympics.
I didn't know that.
It is like people are hungry, and you have like 3 hours to make like $12,000 of sales. Like, it is crazy. Somebody called out, and I've been watching them for a while, so I said, I can do this. Like a 14-year-old girl, like, I can serve. I've watched you. And I did it. And they paid me like $200. And I said, fuck it. Are they coming tomorrow? Because I would be with my dad Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. And I said, are they going to work tomorrow? And they said, no, we could use your help again. And I came and I worked a double on a Sunday. They gave me like $400, and I was like shook. So that's how I started in the front of the house.
Right.
And then I asked my dad if he would allow me to do this on the weekends with him, and he did. So then I started serving. Then when school came back on, I got a job at Panera Bread. First as a cashier, and then I went to the line, and then I went to the bakery in the morning. I always loved setting up the displays, like the bagels and the cookies, and like, and even when I went into retail for a little bit,
kind of similar.
I got myself in a position where I was a visual merchandiser, so I didn't really work with people as much. We would get themes for what it was going to need to look like, and then 1,000 boxes of products that you had to find space for. And that also people wanted to shop. So I always loved the visuals. So then I went to Panera Bread, and then I did retail right after college. And then still would do catering, something like that here and there. I loved a little bit of baking back in the day, would stay up and bake. And then quit retail because it really wasn't making me happy. Started babysitting. That was great. My dad wasn't having it though. He gave me so much shit. This was like and then Makoto was opening, and I was so tired of him giving me shit that I went to Makoto and I said, well, I'm looking for a job. I need to be back. This is what I know how to do. I've been in a restaurant before. I've done some serving. I've done this. And now they hired me as a hostess. And I went to my dad with my thick star restaurant paperwork.
Right.
And all my feistiness. And I threw it at him. I'm like, fine, I got a job again in a restaurant. And then I never left.
Right.
I did front of house. Then I did some serving. Then I did some floor managing, which I loved. But I found myself, and it became very clear to me when I was managing the floor, that I would always and it was back in the era, not back in the era, but back in the time where chefs were really allowed to throw massive tantrums, and sometimes we would just go back there and why couldn't the food just come out, and I'd get so frustrated, and then I would find myself just being give me the gloves, I got this stupid salad, why can't we get this out, I have this table on me, and I just found myself over and over just gravitating towards the kitchen and wanting to cook. And I always, you know, like, even when I was little and we didn't have, our parents were working, I would be like, okay, Andrea, you want to eat fried chicken? I think this is the way people cook fried chicken. Like, would do it. And it was a little bit scary for me because I was like 19, making a salary already, a floor manager, and it kind of tied in my love for clothes and my love for service because I always had, like, these were like when we had to wear heels for service. Like, if you were a floor manager, you couldn't wear, like, you had to wear heels, you know? And then I just took the leap again and I said, no, you know, this is what I want to do. I took a pay cut. I went to be a $12 an hour employee, and then I never left the kitchen. And here I am.
Interesting. You know, I started back in the day at an Applebee's. You know, how long were you at Panera Bread?
In total, like a year and a half between like the Panera Bread back in Coral Springs and the Panera Bread back in Miami.
It's interesting. I feel like that experience taught me a lot.
Oh,
A lot.
Look back at it all the time. I'm like, no, Panera Bread.
Yeah.
They did this very differently. They said step 1, step 2 out, step 3, step 4 gone. Like, I'm like, this is like the way when you wanna.
I mean, they've studied. They're efficient.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that is, especially when you're younger, like, you don't really realize it, but like that, it's invaluable information that I learned. And I started in the front of the house also. You know, I started as a host, server, bar back, bartender, bar manager, expediter. Then I went to dishwashing, and then the fry cook didn't come, and then I started frying stuff and making blondies and all kinds of shit. And I was like, you know, we had no money, so like I needed a job, and I did that for a long time. And that stuff, it really did teach me a lot about at least like the grind, not necessarily like the food, but like the grind of a restaurant, and how I was never a great student, but as soon as I walked into a restaurant, I felt completely at home.
Yeah.
I felt like that's where I belonged. And it's, I don't know if it was the culture or the people. Like, I've always loved like the restaurant, like so multicultural, so many different types of personalities. Like, I love that. You know, like, you learn so much, you experience so much, and it's just like, I think you grow up maybe a little faster because at a young age you were experiencing things that, you know, I mean, you just meet so many people, you know, and I'll never, like, that experience was huge for me. I say it all the time. And then obviously, like, the competitor in me was like, I just want to be like, I want to do more and I want to do more. And then, you know, I started cooking for real, and I was like, then I want to be like the best cook in the kitchen, and I want to be the best line cook, I want to be the fastest, I want to be the cleanest. And it's like, and that just kind of really has snowballed over the last 17 years to, I guess, today. But I don't know. I it's interesting when I talk to kids and they come and apply for jobs, and obviously, like, we're a fine dining restaurant, so like their resumes got no like journey years is what I call them. Like, the years that you journey through the industry or just life to like figure out what it really is going to be. And it's always been like a stage here and a stage here and a stage here, and then I worked here and then I worked here. It's like, I don't know if they really match us. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But, you know, I think that some of those people like grow up faster, especially in the kitchen. You know, it's just like, I remember one of my first kitchen jobs was at a steakhouse, and I worked with this guy named Johnny Radcliffe. And he was an old grill cook. I mean, at that time I was like 22 maybe. And it must have been in his mid to late 50s, maybe. And he had just been working the grill for like 20 years. And I started off, like, they didn't want to hire me because I didn't have a ton of like kitchen experience. So I literally started off like handing people warm plates from like the plate warmer, right? And you know, Johnny was like super cool dude. And broilers, there was like 4 large broilers in the steakhouse. And then there was 4 large ones, and then one that we called the short bus because it was tiny. And the guy didn't show up. And I was like, I had been sitting there, you know, pretty much handing people plates for like 3 months, and I was like, I got this, I can do it. I had no fucking idea what I was walking into, right? Like lamb chops, fillets, beef tips, ribeyes, like the whole nine, you know, tomahawks. And I was like, fuck it, I got it. And then Johnny sat there and he coached me the whole service. And we became like super tight homies. And I'll never forget like that experience for me was like my first real like cooking. Like I really got in there and like cooked like real food, not like Applebee's food, you know? And it was like the simplest form of food, but I would say in my career I've worked a grill station more than I've worked anything else. For some reason, I don't know, they're always like, yeah, we need a grill guy. I'm like, no, I could do it. That's cool. You know, or we need like a meat butcher. I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Got it. I mean, I learned how to like, you know, butcher all beef there, everything. It's interesting how all that kind of like the journey got me from one thing to the next. And I'll never forget that shit. It's important forever. So, okay. Makoto, how old were you then?
19.
19. How old are you now?
19. A good old 30.
30. You've reached the third.
31 in November.
In November?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've reached the third floor. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's a good time. It's a good time. I'm a big fan of the third floor. I remember when Itamae, the first iteration of Itamae was what, 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
I think 3.5 or...
So, talk to me about
maybe
like...
2018, I'm not sure.
So maybe 4.
Yeah.
I mean, to me that makes sense, right? This has been open for 6, so I think I first met you when that opened. So tell me about that experience. Because, I mean, Itamae, for me, was kind of like wildfire, right? In my mind, there's a lot of restaurants that open and that have a lot of talk and hype, but there's very few that keep and then grow. Itamae was that, right? Like, you guys did what you did, and it grew.
Well, Itamae was never meant for Nando and I. It was always meant for my dad. Because we wanted him to have a little counter. It's his dream till now.
Yeah.
He wants nothing to do with because he knows what he can handle, you know? And the people from St. Roch Market had approached me about a little like healthy concept, and I was too scared to take the leap financially. So then I was like, hey, but are you guys looking for a sushi concept? Because my dad's the best. So I set them up. My dad made a platter for them, and they said, okay, we'll do it. I was working for Mike Solomanoff at the time. I had no intention of leaving. Nando was really focused on music at the time. And of course, like any food hall, I'm sure you've got a little taste of it. They said, well, we're opening next week on a Thursday.
I learned my lesson, man.
I was in North Carolina with Mike working a food and wine event. You know, obviously, Nando, I think no matter what, you know, my brother and I have always been very clear, like, no one gets left behind, even when we are at our angriest at each other, or, you know, disappointed or upset. You know, so, you know, we got on the phone like, Nando, you're gonna go with Dad or what? So he's like, yeah, all right, I'll take my weekend off, I'll go help him. None of the dishes had ever been made. Ever. It was, I mean, some of them my dad had dabbled in, but truly none of them had really had any structure. And so Nando went, they opened up with Demo. The 3 of them got crushed. And I would say I had been going there, like, I love organizing, so I had been going already to, like, check that, like, my dad had things to be organized and everything that I thought I could help him in. And then so I happened to be with Mike in North Carolina for food and wine, and we do this amazing dinner with Sean Brock. And at the end, one of the most, like, craziest days of my life, because, you know, I was making pita at the time. I mean, I was doing Disney Golf and Federal, but, you know, bread has always been something that I've always been very curious about, but I'm terrible at it.
Right.
Except
Me
for
too.
pita. Like I kind of learned how to handle it with all the trials and errors. He takes me there to make pita in this wood fire, the husk oven. Like I never cooked with like real wood like that, and bread, and I was very stressed because we usually, pita was like a 3-day process, and now we were doing it in a 1-day process, and you don't want to look like the asshole in general with my real boss, with somebody I admire like Sean, and very nervous. At the end of the shift, he sits me down and, shares with me that they're going to close all the businesses in South Florida, and that my job as a sous chef was ready for me in Philly and to have.
I vaguely kind of remember this story, yeah.
And we were like in a room where like Abraham Lincoln had we would just finish dinner where like Abraham Lincoln had eaten. I don't even know. It was like a very special dinner. And it was like instantaneous. I didn't really even think about it. The first thing, we had a whole weekend to go, and the first thing I said to him was like, hey, I gotta go back to Miami. Because he was like, we're gonna close on Sunday. And this was like a Thursday. And I said, I gotta go back to Miami. But it clicked for me like, no, thank you. But I'm gonna just go be with my family, and then I showed up, and it was perfect timing. I mean, Itamae had only operated maybe 5 days.
Yeah.
So I came home. I went through the whole process of disconnecting with that experience I had, and just went right back to work. And I was super excited. And Nando decided to stay around because we obviously couldn't leave my dad alone.
Val Chang.
And then Nando and I just kind of started taking over all the things. My dad's like, no, I don't want to make mayo this way. And we're like, no, we're going to like bring the peppers. And I was always super focused. Like for me, it was all about the sauces, right? Like that was my focus. Like everything that we did about the sauces. Nando was always about the quality of the fish and like the technique of everything. And then we just stay there.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
And essentially move my dad out of the way. And then that was it. And then we pushed and we pushed and then we pushed. We went through really crazy hours and times, and
yep.
And then here we are.
So how long was it in St. Roch?
I think 1.5 years. So from opening, I was there, part of the team every day. Till COVID. And then I did all the World Central Kitchen stuff, thankfully.
Yeah, that's
that
right.
helped us out tremendously. Had COVID not happened, I already knew, like, working upstairs, that, like, I love cooking in a hot kitchen.
Yeah.
Like, I love saute. Like, that is, like, my favorite fucking station. I like to be, like, dripping sweat and, like, making angry faces because it's so hot in my face, and, like, that's my favorite station. So I was already struggling with the fact that I was, I never wanted to be a sushi chef.
Yeah, it was just
in my,
the moment.
Yeah, I think one day Nando looked at me and said, do you see how many rolls we're selling? Why the hell don't you make any of these rolls? And I'm like, well, it was also very different. Because the station that we had set up did all the ceviches, all the tiraditos, and we also garnished every single roll. It wasn't like also a walk in the park, but you can get people to make that a lot easier than we could get people to make sushi at the time, So I did it, but it was always in the back of my head, like, it's still always in the back of my head, like, when am I going to cook the food that it's like I love cooking that food too, but when is it, like, I would always think, like, when is it that I'm going to be able to express myself outside of this sushi world,
Right. Hot food.
And then COVID happened.
Crazy time.
We were able to be connected with amazing talent like DADE and Nico. And it just worked out that it was a perfect time for me to not leave. Like they were basically, it was so obvious that, I think that it was just better that way for me to go chase whatever it is that I needed to. And then,
so when Itamae, a year and a half or whatever, when did B-Side open? So B-Side
opened like 6 months.
After?
Yeah. No, maybe like a year.
I did an event at B-Side.
I know.
That was fun.
I'm going to do one with Ashley and Manny.
Cool. I love
excited.
that. I think that that was a really fun experience for me. Because that's not food that I know anything about. Like,
yeah. I think that's the exciting part of doing the alternative takes, right? That like it's like it's people that have never done sushi, and then now they get to make their own rolls, and they get to make, and I find that special. So B-Side open, because one of the things that obviously became very apparent is that all of us could not live and sustain, and we've made the bare minimum forever, Michael. Like, it's still till this day, out of one business.
Right.
So when B-Side opened, we saw it as an opportunity. Nando went first, and then it was obvious that the people in Wynwood really didn't.
It's locate, like, it's the place too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more of like a party-ish food hall. I would say it's the most party-ish food hall for sure.
So then, we've had all those back and forths, when we had those conversations of like, it was always very apparent that Itamae was never going to be Itamae without Nando. You needed someone like him behind the sushi bar, as passionate, as talented as he is, to really help us get to the next level,
Right.
So then we made the switch again, and then we sent my dad over there. And that's it. It's, and then, I mean, it was a tough, after COVID, it was a tough year, getting out of my 5-year relationship and going through all the motions of what is it that I want to cook. Losing a lot of control, like, I had gained a whole bunch of weight. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't doing anything that truly made me happy. And then and that was kind of how it happened.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say Itamae, the current rendition, which Itamae moved from a food hall to basically like an open air area, right? Just downstairs, which is probably one of the best things that's happened. That's been over a year now, right?
A year and a half.
Yeah. And, I think that from my view, it's obviously thrived. But I think there's so much left for it to do. Like there's just so much more I think that you guys are capable of doing. Just need a bigger space.
I think we're close. We're very close. Now that I have even a lot more clarity in my own head, like I realize, like, yes, B-Side is in the environment that it is. It's very difficult, for sure.
I mean, you share a box with somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now I have the clarity that we can also make that into something very special.
B-Side.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you've done it before, so why not do it again?
It's...
And that's not to take anything away from what it's been, because I think that I probably have dined at B-Side more than I have at Itamae, just because of where it's at. So I've spent a good amount of time there, and I mean, it's always been delicious and great.
Oh, no, we are very lucky, for the team that we have now. When we've had there, they always try. Julie and Chris. But it's also feeling that, like, I think it could go a little further as well. I don't think we have to limit it to this. But, in that, it's come the conversations for me have been like, all right, well then block off my schedule for the next 4 or 5 months.
Right. Foreseeable future.
Don't book me for anything else. Don't talk to me about another business opportunity. Like, because that's the side people don't ever see, right? Like,
no one does.
That's the side that people are just like, oh, Val's not there, or you're here, you're there. And then I'm like, yeah, because we're also trying to open, you know, the arena may look simple, but it's not simple at all.
Oh, I mean, how many people go to that arena for every game?
You know, the most is 19,000.
I mean, that's
but
a lot.
But, you know, you're running 3 outlets. Like, 3 outlets. Right. We do the sweets, Bacardi, and we do the 100.
I know that was great that we actually had our Christmas party, that's right. And that was definitely the best food we had at the Christmas party, because we had other stuff not so great. And I mean, like, to be able to get that in an arena is pretty fucking amazing in my book, because I know logistically how difficult all of that can be, right?
Michael, I had a hot box on fire yesterday, which might have been the last game of the season. Hopefully not. But it so many things happen. I mean, Raya has transformed, you know, to the start of this. You know, I started the season saying, no, I'm not gonna like make a big batch of like tallarín saltado. It's not with me, you know. Like, I'm never gonna do that. To then being like, I will absolutely make you the best, biggest batch of tallarín saltado you can get, you know. But I know that it's good food, that it's quality ingredients, that there's love that goes behind it, you know. But it's like that balance that a lot of people, the business side, that a lot of people don't get to see, which is like, all right, well, if I'm gonna do this with B-side, I'll do it. But there's no dinners anywhere else. There's no traveling to anything. There's just nothing else.
Yeah.
There's nothing else but this. Like, am I sure I'm gonna do this? You know, and I've had that talk with the staff there, and we've like made a blood pact that we want to do this. They want to do this. You know, I've always been easy on the gas. We're like, you know, the people that have a salary there, just 45, 50 hours. Because I do think that is a good lifestyle. You know, I don't encourage the 60 plus hours. I do not, unless absolutely necessary. But before we made this decision to really like revamp B-side, I had a very clear conversation, you know, about this, and they seem to be game for it. I'm in a good place for it. But you know, that also, you know, I also get worried where I'm like, don't look for Val for anything. For anything. You know, because that's I've learned too that that's how things slip.
Yeah.
And get through, because you're like, here, I'm there, doing this, and you know, like, what happened yesterday is I literally I had 5 people, which is 5 people is a good place to run Raya. And with myself, we were 6, so I said, you know what, let me just go upstairs, check on my dad. We've gotten in a good system too. Make sure everything's good, just say hello. And by the time I came down, I just see smoke. I'm like,
oh no,
what's happening? And you know, we use sternos.
Yeah.
I've never been a catering chef, but I have learned.
Yeah, you gotta learn.
I have learned the past 8 months the little tricks we can do out here. And like 2 or 3 sternos had flipped over. And obviously the oil started coming out.
Oh man.
And because you already have so many sternos in there,
that's mortifying. I'm mortified right now.
And I'm like, oh God, if the alarm goes off, it's over for me, you know, and just like seeing my like people who have also never been in this world, you know, because right now I'm running it with like staff from B-side as well. I'm just like, look guys, let's just make it
right
through the end. And they're like trying to close these things or like create some sort of, I'm like, guys, no, give me like 4 water bottles and just pouring and just taking a guess, because I'm like, I hope this turns it off, and I hope this just doesn't escalate this. And you know, and you this was just me going upstairs.
Man.
This was just me going upstairs.
Yeah, I mean, it often fascinates me, like, how quickly things can go south. And it's like from one day to the next, from 1 hour to the next, it's just like you leave service like, oh, everything's cool, and then you can leave, and then you get a recap that, like, the world ended. And it's so fast. Like, our business is so fast, you know? And it's like, since we do have to coach so many younger, inexperienced people, they oftentimes don't know what to do, you know. And I think that's where, like, the pressure really, like, starts to load in for them. But so random question, because I'm not sure, when there are other events other than sporting events, you guys also open?
Yes, for concerts.
Cool.
Well, now we've learned to, we don't have a choice when it comes to heat games, of course, but we do have a choice when it comes to concerts.
And you pick and choose?
Yes.
Cool. That's cool. So I guess now all three outlets are open and doing their thing. What do you see as a future?
For the foreseeable future, I'm just going to focus on B-side.
That's not answering my question. As a company, though.
Oh, as a company? I think there's so many internal changes that we're going through that it's hard for, like, to really have an expectation, you know. Itamae really needs to, we need to figure out spacing.
Yeah.
You know, before you can say this is the ultimate, like, we're at its peak potential, you know. As you know, so it's seen that. But I think we'll continue to grow, you know, and at a fair pace now, you know, at a fair pace. And the biggest thing I think I see is that, like, we're all getting closer to a space or a place where all of us are doing something we're very happy with.
Yeah.
You know, my dad is doing Bacardi, and, you know, I'm hoping he decides to take some time off once the season's done. He's crushed it. But I think that's something doable for him, you know. He likes to go shopping for all his things. He likes to, like, carry stuff. He's actually injured right now because he went to carry a 100-pound bag of rice.
Right.
He hasn't been able to get out of bed. His back is killing him. So I think we're getting closer to that space where, you know, everybody's getting closer to doing exactly what they love without feeling some sort of sacrifice, right, for the other person.
Well, I think you sacrifice so much early on so you can get to that place.
You know, it's like, all right, now everybody should be we all should be happy, somewhat happy.
How do you feel?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm a mix between, like, wanting to open, like, a little market to, like, going on and having, like, a complete criollo restaurant. Like, some days I'm like, I just love, you know, I also love cooking healthy and doing, you know, I'm very passionate, like, about all that too. So I go in between both.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting place to, like, live within. To, like, love that kind of food and then love the other kind of food too, because they don't totally coincide.
No, they don't coincide at all. But I you know, what I've learned now is, like, instead of and this is why I've chosen to go back to B-side, because instead of talking about all these potential spaces that will eventually come, I just have to focus on what's in front of me, and that is it.
I never, like, really get jacked up about a thing until it's, like, a real thing.
Right. It's like, oh, well, there's, you know, we're signing this lease for like this project that'll be ready in like a year and a half. Out of sight, out of mind.
Correct.
This is what's in front of me, right? Like this is what's in front of me right now.
Yeah, I mean, on the business owner like side, I like to make sure that we've like really exhausted every opportunity to make sure is this like the right move. But until it becomes real on an operational level, like we're, 6 months out, we're 5 months out, it's not real for me. And that's the only like space that I've learned that I can actually operate, because I worked on Chugs the way that Chugs is now for the better part of like 2.5 years, right? And then other things that now are coming into fruition that are still 6 months out, I was working on back then also. But like I wasn't going to shift my focus completely until like, unless it came to working on CAD files and like where things are supposed to be. And yeah, I can make a semblance of a menu, but a menu I made 2.5 years ago is not a menu that I'm going to make today. But this is kind of like the style of food, so I kind of understand how I like to cook and how I want us to cook. So these are kind of the things that I know we need. But until it becomes real and like tangible, and like I'm standing in a space with like a floor,
right?
And it's not just dirt. Like Laurel, I've been working on forever. I mean, this is like pre-COVID that we were negotiating that deal, and now we're getting to a real space that like my chef that has worked for me for 2 years, and I hired her 2 years ago. She's now shifting major focus within her day to do those things, and now it's becoming more real.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And you just have to like, I don't know, like when you become a restaurateur and things happen, you have to learn how to compartmentalize all your thoughts and like your energy, because if not, you're going to be left with absolutely fucking nothing at the end of the day, right? So,
you know how many like lease offers or like project offers we like, I'm exhausted of that. I'm like, let me know when it's signed, completed, it's ours, we can walk in it. Until then, I don't want to entertain much of the. I'm not boxing myself either, but I don't want to like. Sometimes you get caught in like this space and look and this and that, and then you start imagining and you spiral out of control. You're like, I can't wait to put this there. I can't wait to put that. And then they're like, oh my god, somebody came in and put a bigger offer than you, and it's out of you.
Yeah. Especially in the market that we're in today.
So I'm just like, listen, I'm going to just focus with what's in front of me, do the best that I can what's in front of me, and then as the other opportunities will come, they'll show themselves, and then we'll figure out then.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting space too, because like I talk to a lot of people like us, and when I mean like us, people that own an outlet or a couple of outlets or whatever, and people do throw stuff your way all the time, and it's like I'm really difficult at that first initial offer, right? Because I'm very brash and I just tell people the fucking truth. Like, I don't have time for this. If you are fucking with me, right, then don't waste my fucking time. Like, this needs to be real. If you really want to talk business, people already kind of know the shit that we expect. So these are the kind of things that we expect. And the hardest thing for, I think, also people like us, because, creative, and you want to like be able to spread like your food and the things that you do to the world, you get very excited by that. Also, business, I feel like, is pretty exciting.
Yes, of course.
Like, I've learned a lot to say no. I'm good, man.
We were talking about a deal, and I'm learning from a friend who is a financial advisor, and I'm kind of learning to like not to really just go through all the numbers really internally myself without anybody else telling me anything, just myself, and making those deals the best deals. Like, there was a deal that they've been talking to me about, and I've learned to say this is the bottom line for me. Yes, it's a good split, but beyond that split, this is what Val needs to make. This is what Val wants to walk out, as a whole deal. Yeah. And either we can meet there, or I can just simply walk away and say, thank you so much. This is not, because now, I value my time. I look at, I'm like, all right, how many months is that project going to take us? 10? I'm going to have to focus this for 10 months? What does it mean financially to me? I don't want to do it for this much money. I want to do it for this much money.
Right.
It only makes sense for me. And when before, I used to just get carried away with the idea of all the things that I could do. And the excitement of just putting out a menu that I was super excited about, and it was going to be so good because so many people were going to eat it. And just that excitement, where now I've toned it down more to really just on a piece of paper, break down month to month, really what best case scenario means. And just not underselling myself, my brother, my dad, Eric, Demo, the Itamae company for. And you learn these hard lessons by doing
Well, the romance ends.
Yes.
I think we've lived.
It's way over. I'm pay me. I want to buy more shoes. If you don't want to pay me, I'm out.
I think the romance at the beginning is beautiful, and I think it's important. And I think me, I'm also an ultra romantic about the shit that we do. But I'm also a shark, and I've learned because I've been burned too many times. And I just and that's why I tell people all the time, you ever have questions you don't know about, we are always here to help. Because things that happen to me, I want to make sure don't happen to people I care about or people in our position. And also for me, I know the people on the other side of the stick here aren't being romantic about a lease. Yeah. They're just trying to make their bread, and that's cool. But I've built, we're built to be nah, man, we're good. It's okay. You think you're going to work us over? It's fine. I fear about, other people and, the romance still being very real. And I understand that feeling so much. I understand it and I feel it and I remember it like it was yesterday. I just, back then, you don't know how to say no because you don't necessarily know your own worth at that point. But once you learn it, I think it's a very important and telling time. I think it was a big turning point in my life, when I just started saying, nah, I'm good. You want to come to... No. We had this conversation on the phone. They're talking about doing events, and when people want you to come and do an event, be this is how much it costs for me to come and do an event. Yeah. I'm cool, I'll do it. It's how much it costs just for me to go. And then there's other stuff on top of that too.
Yeah.
And remember when we had the conversation, it went both of our ways when we had that conversation. And I think that that's really important because you have to know your worth and how important you are and how special your talent is. And there's so many people like us too that I don't necessarily think know it yet. And they should, but
yeah,
it's just
now I'm at that point in my career where I'm nah.
Amen.
You got me the first time. That was great. But not interested in doing it. I would rather be with my staff doing what we need to do now.
Right.
Than doing this.
So let me ask you, what do you feel? I have very intense feelings about this. What do you feel about kind of the progress that we've seen over the last 5 to 7 years within the dining scene that we live within? I feel we've seen exponential growth. We obviously lived a very fucked year, and we still live repercussions from that. But I've seen a lot of incredible growth, right? And a lot of special. I think I had this conversation with I think you guys are also going to be in the article because the guy Travel and Leisure or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me what do you see out of Miami for the last few years? And I said, I think you're seeing the outcome of several people grinding for a very long time and being very good at their job, and then now maybe they have their own place, maybe they just had their own place, but the only difference is the eyeballs that are on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Miami has been doing very Miami and good things for quite a while, but I think the difference now is people are starting to pay attention. And, you know, it's a testament to, like, what you guys have done, what's happened here, you know, other people, you know, the Boyades of the world, the Zitsums of the world, you know, people like Giorgio's been around for a long time, but opening a second location and doing very well in his second location and getting, like, really great outcome from that. What do you think about that?
It's amazing. We've talked about this. It's great. It's great. I mean, it's... You know, I told this to Michael last time I saw him. I will never forget the day Michael's open.
Yeah.
I will never forget that day. I will never forget when Sugarcane opened. Like, those are things that, like, I will never forget. There was another restaurant that I just, like, the excitement of feeling like we were getting something really cool and special and different, and that our city was growing, and for people from my time, you know, I mean. So I think, like, I love it. I mean, I think we're all so special, and I think everybody who's coming down are also special. Like, I truly, for instance, like, I admire the people from Coe. Like, I truly do. You know, and I remember, like, when they were about to open, everyone, you know, not everyone, but a lot of people were like, oh, they're from, like, here we go. You know, the same, like, Miami attitude that we always carry in our like, the chip in our shoulders that we always have. You know, here we go.
I got it.
Another transplant coming here with their bullshit, getting a really big spot and all this money and you know. But then you get to meet them and you realize that they care the same way we do. And that they're so supportive that they also, like, do their best to support the local talent and to, like, any connection that they can to connect, and it's a bridge, you know, between maybe a type of customers that we weren't gonna ever really get to that quickly, but they're helping us build that bridge, you know. Like, I think it's amazing.
I don't think that they're all quite created that equal.
No, but I think it doesn't matter. Like, I think that's just, like, the way the business goes, right? You have people who are just all about them and them and them, and then you have some people who want to be part of a community, that want to be, you know, integrated and feel.
Yeah, I mean, of all the transplants, I think Simon Kim and his team are definitely pretty amazing people. I think that they're, and not only that, I mean, their product speaks for itself. I mean, I think they do really, really good work, and I think that their food, I mean, I haven't been there in a while, but their service has always been top notch. Like, they really, really give a fuck. I don't quite think everyone's like that, but I do think that place specifically is very much like that. You know?
I'm excited. I think there's so much good food. I still only go to the same places or no places. I'm consistent. I don't really change.
Yeah. I mean, I think the growth that we're seeing is, like, pretty visceral. Like, it's hard and fast for sure. You know, I mean, in the Grove, like, 6 years ago when we opened here, like, there was nothing here. It was a Fat Tuesday still, and it was like, I remember 6 years ago, people would tell me, like, you know, there's no way you'll make it in the Grove, right? Like, that food, no one's gonna eat that food, and I was like, fuck it. I mean, talk about romance. I was like, we're gambling it all now. We're gonna see what the fuck happens, and, you know, thankfully, we're blessed that through a lot of trials and tribulations, like, we're still here. But it's been interesting the last, like, 2 years to see the growth of just this part of the city itself. I mean, this part of the city has grown. I mean, just like Chokes, you know, like that whole courtyard, that whole thing that's there. All of Coco
Good old
Walk.
Akashi.
Yeah, Akashi's back. Well, Akashi's back now across the street.
Bigger, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, then it was.
Yeah. I mean, much bigger than what it was. So I think the growth is going to be interesting to feel it out and see how it all shakes out. But I really do feel confident about like the future and where we're going. So, well, Nick, you have been so quiet.
I don't think that you've really had much need for me over there.
I mean, are you okay?
I'm working through some things.
Are you?
Yeah,
Are you editing Liberated Podcast right now as we're on this? Right now?
Finding a way to make sense of your episode, yeah.
Also, you're one of my like top Instagram accounts that I like to like see the stories because you're always on some shit.
Oh, man.
There's always things happening.
I actually like whenever you post the scammers, I sit down. I'm like, hold on, I need to pay attention.
Hold
to
on,
this.
this text is too small and there's too much of it. I need to read through this.
Yeah, I mean, for the people who don't follow Nicholas Jimenez on Instagram, it's a very good follow. Nick has made it a point now to publicize all of his scammer texts.
That's right. Yeah, all my interactions with scammers, who I assume are like in China or India or something.
Somewhere far, far away.
Right.
Definitely not in Hialeah, that's for sure.
Right.
And Nick has also been sharing a lot of the newest podcast, the Liberated podcast from the DADE platform, which I was actually fortunate enough to be invited to be a guest.
You're a blessed man, Michael.
And I hope that
really the peak of this is your high point of your career.
It took 100 and whatever episodes to fine tune me for that episode.
Right, that was really the only reason we do Pan Con Podcast was to prepare you.
Yeah.
For the Liberated Podcast.
Pan Con Podcast or Pan Con Lechon?
It's Pan Con Lechon, apparently.
It's Pan Con Lechon. It's
Pan Con Lechon.
Almost died when she said this to me. I'm like, I know you really think you said lechon, but to me, yeah. I'm going to Pan Con Podcast.
It's lechoncito over here.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not at all. Well, I think we could start to do our wind down.
Yes. This is where we do our wind down. We'll start with our parting recommendations. Sure. Everyone will recommend a thing that people should eat, read, watch, do, a place they should go, whatever it might be. Val, do you want to kick this off, or do you want some time to like think about it?
Something to eat?
Anything at all.
Anything.
Like
it
anything.
Could be something that you watch.
Yeah.
It could be a book.
It could be local. It could be elsewhere. It could be on the internet.
Proves that she's listened to the podcast but never quite made it to the end.
Yeah, you're gonna talk into the other side of that thing.
Sorry. It's all new. This is all new equipment.
New technology.
Yeah, new equipment here.
So you can start, or you can give yourself some time while we recommend things. Whatever you want to
do. You recommend things.
Okay.
I'm like, what? Oprah?
You want to go?
Sure. So I've mentioned this person a bunch of times now on the podcast, but I might have even recommended this song, but the video just came out for the song Forward by Cold Man, which is the rap name of Coleman Hughes, who is also the host of Conversations with Coleman, a podcast. Forward is very good.
What have we got here?
Schrodinger's MC. Whether I'm dead or alive, you gotta respect me. I'm tired of politics, and I'm tired of press briefs, and I'm tired of college kids with the try-hard aesthetics. I learned less from college than from the wiki bin.
And the video is very good. There's like an extended cameo with Neil deGrasse Tyson in it. So I'm recommending that. And also, I'm recommending, sorry, I gotta check to make sure that I get the name right. Mike, I hope I'm not stealing this recommendation from you, but there is another Instagram account other than my own that people should check out. You are going on Instagram and looking for Brian Jordan Alvarez.
Oh, no. I got another one, but that's good.
That's a good one. Brian Jordan Alvarez is a Colombian-American actor who has had roles on Will and Grace
this guy.
And other things. If you just go to that account and then go to his Reels, he uses all the, like, I think it's primarily TikTok, and then he reposts them on Reels, but I'm not a TikTok person. The face filters that, like, do crazy stuff to your face. Each filter corresponds to a different character. And he has, like, this whole cinematic universe of, like, storylines with, like, a total through line, like, from a year ago they started. One of them is a Latin chef who specializes in onions and garlic. And it's incredible. It is.
What about the potato guy?
Right. Well,
What's his name?
Brian Jordan Alvarez, all one thing. Brian Jordan Alvarez. This chef's latest project, is he is opening a potato restaurant in Florida. He knows that you have been, he has in the past in his career focused on garlic and onions, but right now he's a little bit more focused on potatoes.
He does sound like that. It's amazing. So good.
He once picked a potato in a marsh that was sitting next to an alligator.
So I know what you're wondering. You're all saying, where is the onion? Where is the garlic? In this day, it's a different kind of day because I am opening a potato restaurant in Florida. I'm not going to tell you which city, but it is probably your favorite one. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't make anything you want with potato, because you can make anything you want with potato. You can make bread with potato, you can make potato with potato, and you can make mashed potato, obviously.
So yeah, Brian Jordan Alvarez on Instagram is my other recommendation. Mike will let she might still be figuring hers out.
Yeah, I got it. So my two recommendations. One is an Instagram account of a gentleman that has very short films. They're usually around 10 to 15 seconds, and all he does is he dresses pretty much the same way. He has a fabulous mustache, glasses,
Not a
and
mustache.
it's a mustache. And a wonderful hat. And he puts himself in like very interesting situations just to flip the camera off. And his Instagram name is Sicky Dicky.
Sicky Dicky.
Dicky Donnie.
With IEs, right? Not Y's. Sicky.
Yeah, with IEs. Sicky Dicky. And he is what I would call a modern day legend. And I think he does really great work. It really will brighten up even the worst day. So that's one of my good recommendations. The other is a movie, more serious, called The Best of Enemies. And it's a... you've seen it?
The documentary about Gore Vidal and...
Ann Atwater and C.P. Ellis.
Oh, no. It's different movie, same name.
Okay. And basically, I'll just give you a quick summary. It's essentially... Ann Atwater was an activist, and C.P. Ellis was the president of the KKK in a certain part of North Carolina, I don't recall. And one of the African-American schools had a fire, and this was the beginning of integration of African-American schools and all-white schools in... I guess North Carolina. I don't know if there was in other parts of the country, and they did this thing called a charrette. Have you heard of that? No. Charrette, and it's basically like a town hall meeting and vote, which is basically to take the kids from one school to integrate them into another. And the evolution of this is basically someone who was the president of the KKK and a very hardcore African-American activists, and how they became best friends, and they had a friendship for 45 plus years after this happened. And I had never heard of the movie before, and I just kind of put it on because I was like, yeah, I'm tired, I'm probably going to fall asleep, I'll fall asleep in this. And I stayed up for all 2.5 hours of the movie, and it was great. And the actors are awesome, really. I don't remember their actual names, but I recommend it for anyone.
Cool.
Your turn.
I don't know, man. I'm really not.
Could be anything.
I recommend everybody listen to Super Soul Sundays.
Super Soul Sundays?
Yes. Have you ever listened to one?
No.
What is it?
So it's Oprah's shows.
Oh.
She also does podcasts. And obviously she brings on the best of the best, to come and talk to you about what the hell's wrong with all of us. And,
we haven't been invited yet, so I don't know.
There's too much wrong with us.
That's true.
It's kind of the only thing I'm like really.
No, but like food, like what?
Oh,
like,
food? I don't know.
I don't know.
What's
Listen,
the
I know that you like to order delivery. Like, what's your favorite thing to order? Random things. It could be whatever. Yeah.
I don't ever order delivery. Isn't that weird?
Ever?
Ever. You know where the only place I order delivery from? B-side to check how it's arriving and how are the food maintaining. This is a very serious thing.
Wow. That was like very intense. I'm scared, but I got it.
What would you say is what's the last thing that you ate that you found yourself wanting to tell somebody about it?
The yuca I just had tonight.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yes. Right. Like, I took that first bite and I'm like, what the fuck? That was great.
Yeah.
Like, that was very unexpected for me.
Good.
And just like right up how I like food. Had a little acidity, had richness. Yeah, it was amazing.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry,
I
I'm not
that.
like.
You did great. Val, you did
I'm loving
great.
Formula One.
Oh yeah.
Well, after going through the experience of working there, I needed to see why the fuck people love it so much.
Oh yeah.
I don't get it.
So I had to watch it. I don't get why people actually go to it in that temperature, unless it's like a beautiful fall day that you're not in like crazy heat and you can truly enjoy it. Understandable. But like in the pure, like I don't understand how anybody in Miami paid what they paid to be just blazing hot just on you, you know? So I started watching the show. There's so many rules to it. I never knew Formula One in Netflix.
Oh, I've seen that and I have not watched it.
There's so many rules. Like I always thought like, okay, like whenever they're doing the turns and if they crash, fuck it, you know, that's just part of the game, but it's really not. Like, they take that shit super serious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people take it super serious. When I was on a plane back from D.C., there was somebody traveling from Baltimore coming here, and she was a huge Formula One fan. Like, she was all decked out in the Formula One stuff. Hat, shirt.
Well, not just the people. I guess I was talking about, like, the inside of them. Like, I thought, like, when race car drivers, like, obviously, you know, it's like being in the kitchen. You might burn yourself or cut a piece of your finger off. It's just, it's what it is, right? And you get to a point where you're kind of like, oh, you could, like, you know, it's funny, like, when when, like, somebody, the first time they cut their finger off on a mandolin.
Oh, man.
And you're just like, oh, my God, you're fucking fine, man. Nothing's going to happen to you. Like, that shit bleeds forever, but just put the fucking shit on it, close it up, nobody cares anymore because we're so used to it, right?
Right.
And the person's like, but the tip of my thumb is gone. You're like, yeah, it's gonna come. It might come back, might not come back. We can go get you to take stitches, but if we go get stitches, your finger's gonna be deformed. So what do you want? Like a square tip or like a really deformed tip? So let's pick here wisely, right? Like we come.
I love that you've had this conversation with somebody.
Yeah, you know, and so. It was the same thing I thought about Formula One. Like, oh, I'm sure like crashes are like the drivers are so used to it and they're so like it's part of the grind. And I thought they like even incentivize it, like just like be so good that even if the other fucking guy crashes, like forget it, doesn't matter, you're that great. But it turns out no, they get really fucking pissed when these things happen. And like you might sound like an idiot because I just didn't know anything about it, but like the amount of safety protocols that they go through, I never knew. Never would have guessed it.
You're essentially recommending watching the Formula One show on Netflix.
If you have some free time, watch it. You know, I also like watching like really weird like dramas, and I was watching The Girl from Plainsville. I don't know if you've seen it on Netflix. It's about the girl whose boyfriend who had a lot of mental issues committed suicide in a car by putting like a motor in it, locked himself up, and I guess you know when the
right.
I don't know what that's called that comes out. Yes, and choked himself basically, but she was on the phone and she told him like do it. Yeah. She clearly also had a lot of issues, and she got she went to jail for this, and they found her guilty of like involuntary manslaughter. And I was watching that, but then I got weird. You know, I'm like, damn, people have a lot of fucking issues.
Yeah,
I don't even want to leave my house again. And then I'm like, turn it off. Formula One, it is.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm gonna sort of related recommendation if you live anywhere near a racetrack that does NASCAR events, I'm not a NASCAR person. I've never watched NASCAR things, but a few years ago, as part of a project I was doing for Cigar Snob magazine, I partook in what I think is called the NASCAR experience or something. And I was blown away that this is even like allowed. I went into it not knowing, not thinking it was going to be like all that interesting. I thought it was going to be like kind of a boring day. But they just like let you take a stock car onto the racetrack.
You by yourself.
Yeah, like there was nobody else in the car with me. And I'm driving this thing, I think it was like 140 miles an hour with other people on the track doing the same shit.
Crazy.
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
It was nuts. Like if you find yourself able to go to like Daytona or something, or you're in Indianapolis or whatever. I did it in Daytona, and it was wild. It was like
I would love to do that.
Yeah,
they give you the helmet. You have people because you're like they tell you like there's no rear view mirrors here. You are not allowed to look anywhere other than through the windshield, and we'll tell. That to me was the scariest thing was they tell you like we're gonna tell you when to change lanes in your gear.
Wow.
Don't look around, because the second you look around, you're going to fuck up and you're going to send this car into something. Just look forward, and when we tell you to move, you move. And you have to
How'd
trust
you do?
us. I've survived.
Well, you're still here.
Well, no, but like, did you feel good? Did you feel like?
Oh, no, it was incredible. It was like, that's like.
I would love to do something like that.
I didn't
so
think
cool.
I would like leave that wanting to tell anybody about it, and I'm still recommending it years later. I'm not a car person. Like, it was super cool.
Yeah, that is dope.
Also, if Michael has I just want everybody on record that Michael has committed to pick me up in a Cadillac to go with him in 2 weeks. Okay? Is committed. He said this to me this morning.
Oh,
I just want to make sure that happens because...
Still trying to get a Cadillac right in Orlando.
And you're under the impression that saying it on Pancon Podcast makes it more real?
Yeah.
No, I just want to hold him accountable.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, I think now it's time for the lightning round.
Well, shameless plugs. Let's do.
That's right. That's right.
Tell everybody where they can find you and your stuff on the internet and in the world and all that stuff. Whatever you want to plug it here.
Chifita Chang.
Chifita Chang.
Chifita Chang.
Yeah.
On Instagram. Yeah.
Itamae.
On Instagram, yep. Itamae, B-side, and Raya.
Got it. Anything else?
That's it.
Very good. Michael Beltrán, shameless plugs.
Insert song.
All the things.
All the things. I still got to recommend all my shit. I mean, we've done this 80 times already. It's whatever. Yeah, all the things. All the things.
No, but who knows? Maybe people are coming here for the first time. But you know what? Fuck you.
All the things. At this point, just all the things.
You can find Pancon Podcast on all the social media things at Pancon Podcast, not Pancon Lechon, not Panko Podcast, not Pumpkin Podcast. It's Pancon Podcast, like a podcast sandwich.
Pancon Lechon.
And give us all your money at patreon.com/DADEMAG, DADEMAG. It's dademag.com/Pancon Podcast. And follow Petey the Dog. We haven't given him a shout out here in a while.
Aww.
Petey the Dog is Petey the Dog, Peaty, like a Petey Scotch, Petey the Dog on Instagram. That's where you get all of your nonstop Petey action. And now for the lightning round. Thank you very much, Val.
Thanks, Val, so much.
Thank you,
We're
guys.
here. We finally did it, Nick.
We
finally did it.
Last time it was totally your fault. No,
Thanks
time
everyone
I was
for
sick.
joining Pancon Podcast. We're going to be going over to the lightning round now, and if you've paid us all your money on Patreon, you'll hear 5 lightning questions with Val Chang. Thanks.